you good? Alright, so I'm going to talk about the history of the electric guitar. First I want to talk about the invention of the electric guitar. I'm going to read this little passage to you. The desire to increase the sound of the guitar exists longer before the development of the electrical amplifiers and the speakers. Musical performers in the 19th century were characterized by even ever larger concert setting and ensembles. Musicians needed louder and more powerful instruments, which became possible by using new materials and designs. So basically, the guitar wasn't loud enough, and they needed something to even out the sound, because they had drums and other wind instruments and brass instruments that were louder than the guitar, so they needed something to power it. So they were working on some type of invention for it. In the 1920s, as public dance music became more popular and the infant recording industry required high volume to capture a musical performance, guitar makers increased their efforts to develop ever louder guitars. Some people continued experimenting with large sizes and metal bodies. Other innovators started to focus on electricity as a possible aid. By the end of the 1930s, electronic amplifiers proved to be one of the most successful inventions for building a louder guitar. Despite the misgivings of some of the traditionalists about the new technology, country and jazz guitars were among the first to champion the electric sound. Then, in the 1940s and 50s, players and makers began building Spanish-style electric guitars with solid wooden bodies, which led to new designs and new sounds. So this invention was like the best thing that happened around the 1920s, and especially jazz and country artists, and then rock came later. But that made that exciting for them, and which grew the industry of the music industry. A louder guitar. The history of the electric guitar's development comprises a legacy of inventions and innovations dating back in the 20th century. Particularly since the introduction of the modern six-string Spanish-style guitar around the 1800s, there has been a continuous interaction among guitar players and makers seeking ever greater volume for their instruments. By the 1850s, a man named C.F. Martin had developed X-bracing to reinforce the guitar's body, as well as other innovations leading to a new American flat-top guitar design. In the 1890s, Mr. Gibson carved body guitar not only increased its volume, it also set the standards for instrument makers in the early 20th century and blazed the trail for the archtop guitar. So they're over here. It's kind of like the Wright brothers, how they made the plane. How it took them different ways to make the plane, and they gradually found a way to make it fly. So how the guitar, they made different ways for the guitar to get the sound and the way to hold the strings and the number of strings. The quest for a louder guitar intensified during the 1920s with the advent of the big band music, phonograph recordings, and commercial radio. To compete in these new markets, guitar makers began not only building large flat-top and arch-top guitars, but increasingly experimenting with different materials and design. John of the National String Instrument Corporation took the idea of acoustic amplification to its limit, designing a steel-body guitar with a banjo-type resonator amplifiers to build into the top. So the acoustic, the standard acoustic guitar that we have that is electrified now, that has the thing that is like an electric guitar, was first before the electric guitar. So yeah, the electrified guitar. The idea of using electricity to create louder strings already existed by the idea of the 19th century. but it was only during the 1920s and the 1930s that engineer, makers, and musicians began to solve some of the challenges of electronic amplifiers. And there is my lesson on electric guitars. Thank you.